Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mike Hartke with Yash Technologies, and I'll be moderating today's panel discussion where we're going to be exploring remote work. The pandemic has forced us all into a situation where companies to thrive and succeed need to support remote work. And to do that, we've asked 4 of the top IT leaders in the United States to give us their impressions on how to go about and supporting these things. We'll be looking at remote work from a few different ways. One, we're going to explore kind of the block and tackling of it all. What happens? How do you support these people? How do you do the multiple devices? What are your expectations for people in the office, at home? From there, we're going to move on to the security side of things. How do you support when your network is now stretched out into everybody's home? Finally, we'll move on to the cultural aspect of what work from home means to these businesses. And now, on to the panelists. I'd like to introduce you to 4 phenomenally talented gentlemen in infrastructure. First off, we have Tate Guckin from Polaris. Tate is the Global Director of Infrastructure for Polaris. We have Michael Loggins, who's the Global VP of IT with SMC USA. And finally, we have Merle Joflingam, Yash Technologies' own VP in charge of Yash Infrastructure. Now that will take us into the discussion a little bit. And Tate, when we first started talking about work from home, you were the person that kind of brought up that topic and said, this is what I'm focusing on right now. So organizations are of all sizes by design and necessity are moving towards becoming hybrid workplaces. Now, what unique steps has your organization taken in this crucial area to enhance the end user experience?
Sure, thanks, Mike. I'll start by saying our company plan isn't fully baked, so as I talk through some of these details, just know there will likely be some late-breaking changes. I don't want to say that all of these plans are 100% baked and communicated to employees. So, and we're not looking to transition post-COVID to 100% remote. We value the face-to-face collaboration, relationship building, culture building, et cetera. So we're more likely to adopt a hybrid model where we're blending the remote days with the in-person days. And that blend will be based on your job description, leader preferences, the needs of a job on any given day, excuse me. And you know, infrastructure roles often have some hands-on components, so that will certainly play into it. And lastly, we're probably going to maintain where with 1 business day's notice, we expect you to be able to be on site without any travel reimbursement. And as my CIO has talked to other CIOs, he says this is very consistent with what he's hearing from just about all of them, from Fortune 500 down to $1 billion privately held companies. But I do expect post-COVID, we'll see more remote or hybrid work models than pre-COVID. So with that background, what does this mean for infrastructure? A few areas are impacted. First, our employees are going to have 2 different workspaces to operate out of, 1 remote and 1 on-site. And we're looking at maybe providing at no cost to the employee an IT peripherals package for remote work. So maybe a dual monitor package that has a keyboard, mouse, headset, dual monitor, and a docking station. Maybe there's a single monitor package, same thing, just with a single monitor. And we're also going to have webcams, speakers, mic pucks, et cetera, as needed. Initially, we're looking at not tracking all of these as actual assets, but we'll keep track of, did a person get a package of at-home peripherals, just so we can recover that upon their termination. But obviously tracking every one of those as a company asset would be, you know, ridiculously burdensome. My estimate is that that'll be about a $500 package per user, probably a 3-year life cycle. So all in, you're at whatever, $160, $170 per user per year. So that's really not going to tip us over too hard. We want people to be productive. We want to minimize the amount of equipment movement, because as soon as you're moving mice, monitors, docking stations, more likely going to have failures of the equipment. And We're going to provide this equipment also to prevent people going out and buying their own that may have some compatibility issues for whatever reason, really reduce the support footprint that way. We're not going to fund furniture other than by exception. What we're more likely to do there is have a training video for ergonomics and then have employees self-certify that they can create a work environment that meets these ergonomic requirements. And I think our view is going to be that an employee's ability to provide space, furniture, network connectivity is just a prerequisite for them being able to work remotely. The next area I was going to touch on is the continued leveraging of collaboration tools. In the last year, there's been a huge reliance upon remote collaboration tool sets such as Teams, WebEx, Zoom, etc. And while many post-COVID meetings will probably have an in-person component, I expect meetings will also have accommodations for remote attendees, at least for the foreseeable future. We do a lot of town hall meetings using Teams live events, and they're becoming really popular with our business unit leaders, and I don't expect that to decrease. We're also leveraging Teams and WebEx to conduct product demos at Polaris. So we had board of directors meetings with remote board of directors, and we were able to use webcams to do walkarounds of vehicles, and that was very effective. And I think we'll continue doing that for whether it's board of directors meetings or engineering demos, things like that. I think this is going to be here to stay. I think my infrastructure staff is going to need to become experts with these collaboration tool sets, provide ongoing training and support for them. Let's see, Teams has been very popular with our user community. And another area we're starting to consider is, do I move our telephony into Teams? Initially I was resistant because it's a huge undertaking, but collapsing tools into a single pane of glass, I think will be very popular with our user base. Our employees are already used to using soft phones after being remote for the last 14 months. So do I also remove desk phones? In the office environment, there could be some very real ongoing cost savings there. In addition, it will probably position us in the future should we choose to move to more of a hotel officing type model. The last area I'll touch on is potential network impact. All these collaboration tool sets may start driving the need for an enterprise content delivery network. If these town hall meetings continue, I'm going to have perhaps hundreds of people in one of our offices all pulling down the same streaming content from, for example, the CEO giving a monthly town hall meeting. And that can tip over our network pretty hard. So we're going to start evaluating eCDN solutions to have those positioned in the offices before the majority of the people return into the office. And with that, I'll pause there. I'm really interested to hear about others' forward-looking infrastructure adaptations to help support this.
Well, thank you for the transition, Tate. Murli Jothlingam, could you talk to us a little bit about some of the scenarios maybe that Yash has gotten themselves into with this, and how do we support our clients that way? I believe you're on mute, my friend.
Yes. Can you hear me?
We can hear you just fine.
Oh, yes.
Okay. Thanks, Mike. Absolutely. And a very good afternoon to you all. Mike, when when the pandemic hit, many customers were left, to figure out how to go about, accessing their applications or, work from home or remotely. But some customers were well ahead of the game. So let me take you through one of the case studies, where Yash, one of Yash customers, in a global tools manufacturing, the organization headquartered in Connecticut in New Britain. It's a $16-17 billion company. Spread across the globe in more than 42 countries and having presence, across almost six, spread across almost 6 planets with a global workforce of about 45,000, the endpoint, the users. This global tools manufacturing company has been an existing customer of Yash for the last 5 years. And we started a digital transformation, the initiative about way back about 2016, about 4 to 5 years ago. Okay, so they had a significant presence of the applications on their on the local data center. So they had three major data centers, spread across the U.S. and having almost no presence on the the cloud or on the cloud. So we put together a roadmap and a strategy and an initiative for transforming, most of the applications, from on-prem to the cloud. We went on a multi-cloud, the strategy, migrating some of the, the homogeneous onto the, the Windows environment of the Azure and heterogeneous applications onto the Amazon AWS. And these applications were made accessible to their, the end users remotely. So that's where the digital transformation initiatives comes in. The first step of the transformation was to make sure these applications are accessible seamlessly from anywhere, or from home or remote or on the road. So in the first phase, we took about about close to about 2 years to migrate most of the applications, and second phase was about 1,200 servers were migrated. So the next phase, we started with transforming the endpoint, the management. About the global workforce, about 45,000. So we standardized all the desktops and the laptops. We put together operating system hardening. We distributed centrally from a central location so that every laptop and a desktop has got the same version of the operating system, the same patching version. Then we went on further, in terms of application packaging, application, distribution. And some of the significant accomplishments came from, the cloud-based, the patching, eliminating the global, the presence of, the data center footprints, maintaining the data center. That's where when the cloud hit and the customers realized that, some of the global initiatives, the digital transformation, initiatives which we put together, were well ahead of the game. So we were able to manage all this endpoint management, right from the cloud base. We migrated all that, the Microsoft Intune was implemented to manage their, the endpoint tablets or laptops or the phones. We, implemented Microsoft Team for digital, seamless collaboration. So we did a number of things to help accomplish the digital transformation journey. It took about 4 to 5 years for some of the large, the customers which I'm talking about. And the net result is, they saved about $5 million. Point number one. Point number two is they're well ahead of the game. Today, when the pandemic hit, they had very minimal impact on the organization because they're already transformed into the next generation where the employees could work from home or work from office. They minimized the data center footprint by almost 90%, and the environment was audited by the Microsoft as well. So we got 10 out of the 10. So those are the journeys which took some of our customer, not just helping them to accomplish the digital the transformation journey, which certainly helped them to work from home or a hybrid environment, besides saving the close to about $5 million. So as we speak, Mike, we are working with several other small to mid-size or the mid-size the customers, putting together or replicating a similar the framework, helping customers accomplish the hybrid the work environment beside So we are last but not the least, we had been recognized as a global leader in digital workplace, from some of the industry analyst firms like Nelson Hall, an UK-based firm, and also from an US-based called ISG Group as a digital leader, on the digital workplace. So let me pause there, Mike.
No, and that's a great story. I thank you for sharing that with us, Murli. It's one of the many success stories that we have here at Yash, helping our clients be more effective in what they do.
Absolutely.
And helping be more effective in what they do, Michael Loggins, you have a unique perspective on this as well, because you're not solely focused on infrastructure. But I'd love to hear on what your company has done to help support these folks working from home.
Yeah, actually, we've done, we've kind of went down the path, at least in North America, about the last 5-6 years, kind of preparing for the inevitable of people going home at some point. We have a remote workforce, so we've been down that path. So yeah, March of last year, when our salespeople could no longer visit our customers, it wasn't that big of a deal. They just stayed home and worked like they had before. Elsewhere on the globe, maturity wasn't there, so we've been doing some of these maturity optimizations of standardization of equipment, making sure we have correct policies and tools in place. We're going down the zero trust and software defined perimeter right now. What Aaron talked about the identity management being the key cornerstone of that. That's where we're focusing a lot on. But I'd say from where I sit, one of the biggest things we've done, other than just continually work to enable technologies and applications that don't require physical presence in the building, is awareness training. We have all of our employees in certain countries sitting at home, sitting next to their kids, sitting next to spouses, all on the same network, working with each other, and trying to find out and making sure, and especially with the prevalence of attacks and things going on at a higher rate now, even just because of COVID. Being able to make sure that they can still be our best defense when they're at their houses. Even we've extended even our security awareness platforms to their families, so their kids can get the education, their spouses, whoever is going to be in their vicinity also understands how to best protect themselves, because we see that it goes back to the perimeter's been blurred, and
Yeah.
we can't. We it's not just on the other side of a firewall, it's on the other side of every endpoint that we need to have, or potentially and don't potentially need to have anywhere near our network. So that's been a big challenge for us, is actually trying to make sure that we can deal with some of that blurry perimeter with our people.
No, I'd love to get Murley's perspective on this. Murley, do you have maybe a story you can share with us from one of our clients that we've had?
Certainly, Mike, and I myself come from a security background. I have been a certified auditor and a lead implementer quite some time back. So, so let me begin with Yash. We give utmost importance to security. So when it comes to security, protecting the intellectual property rights of the customers, and Yash is of utmost importance. So, we make sure the confidentiality, integrity, and availability is well maintained. Yash is a certified ISO 27001 organization, and also a statement of SSE 16 statement of statement of the attestation engagement, statement of standards from attestation engagement, which comes from the American Institute of Certified the public accountant the office. So we have all that the framework from a security to protect the Yash data as well as the customers data. So that's on the one side of it. The other side of it is around when it comes to managing our the customers. We work with several the tools. There are Splunk is one of our quite popular tools. The logarithm, Logpoint, SailPoint. I mean it depends from customer to customer, depending on the size, the complexity, and the organization needs and the licensing model. So we have partnership with close to about 20. But tools is one aspect of it. But the other aspect of it is, when it comes to technology services, to deliver technology services faster, cheaper, quicker, or better, besides tool, people, process, and the automation plays a very, very the vital role. See, tools, if you look at today, an hacker can get into any tools for that matter. So they got into the US government, the data. They were predominantly using the managing engine. Okay, so sorry, the SolarWinds. Colonial, the pipeline attack, which left most of the the from all the way from Texas to New Jersey, the gas line getting affected. So one of the key important point, I would suggest is, making sure, the team is well trained to handle the situation. When a distributed denial of attack happens, what they are supposed to do, how soon they can do, how quickly they can rectify, or the IP spoofing, or and any of the ransomware attacks happens. So Yash, at Yash, we provide a 24/7, 365 days of real time, monitoring, the team. So when I say real time, it's real time. We provide a 5 minutes of a response time. The team is well distributed across 3 geographic locations. They're all the time in front of the, the dashboard. So when an alert or a threat or a warning, something comes up, they know what they need to do. So that way, they can prevent the attacks, or if they can avoid the further penetrating any of the the data of the customer. Before I can switch out to you.
No, thank you very much for that, Murley. And that takes us over to Michael. Michael, what is SMC doing to secure the networks and ensure that this network that is now spread out into everybody's home, these things are protected and your people are still being supported?
As we have investigating or trying to bring up maturity across the globe, that standardization is a big chunk of that, so we understand what is everywhere, as well as the asset management of understanding what is everywhere is huge for us. But two of the big things that we're looking at are making sure we have a secure supply chain, making sure, especially with our security products, that either from a development practices standpoint or from a manufacturing process standpoint, we're not going to potentially have rogue chips and resistors sitting on our boards for our security appliances, and hopefully the amount of that secure code practices are not going to introduce issues like we had with the SolarWinds issue into our environment. The other big chunk of this is, the idea of defense in depth has been out there for years. It's been preached since I was in CCNA boot camp in the late 90s. But I think now with everyone coming up with these huge suites of tools, we're starting to see more and more homogenized tool sets. And I think making sure when you are looking at your tools, that defense in depth idea of, maybe you do have to have 10 different tools to do something, to make sure you have the best, absolute best tools. For my team, I've told them, I said, we get to own the complexity. We have to own the complexity of that. We don't want our employees and our users having to deal with the fact that there's 10 different tools to do something. But if we can provide that complexity and safety behind the scenes with the appropriate automation and integration, that defense in depth is still an extremely valuable and necessary foundation. And then, so those are the two big things that we're working on right now.
No, and that's great. Thanks for sharing that with us, Michael. And it takes us to Tate here. And Tate, I know that you guys are usually more focused on, anti-lock brakes and seat belts and roll bars and stuff like that. But can you talk to us a little bit about the security features that Polaris is putting in place to help protect themselves as well?
Sure. From a lens of specifically around the hybrid work and remote users, when over time we have been implementing more tools such as OneDrive, O365, Teams, things that are already cloud-based and you don't need to be on VPN for. And when our people went remote, there was kind of no change for a lot of people in how they work. They just were able to access these tools. And the biggest security tool that I think helped us feel good about that, as a couple others talked about, is MFA. So if I'm going to access my O365, I'm going to have Duo pop up on my cell phone saying, do you approve this? And I think that has really helped a lot of our leadership feel better about these cloud solutions and people accessing from anywhere. I think the only other comment I would make around security impact of people being remote is there's been a push. We have quite a few different business groups. Some were fairly separate in terms of their IT operations. And again, on this call, people have brought up the idea of standardization, and we're starting to hear talk about enterprise-wide solutions, because if there's one solution that's consistent across the enterprise, I have a pretty good chance of doing a good job with it. If there's a handful of one-offs, that's probably going to be where my holes are. So I'll stop there.
Yeah, and that's like having multiple padlocks all over the place with different keys in them, different complexities. Some of them are luggage ones, and some of them are big honking ones. So it's really an interesting topic to explore. But that actually leads us into the next phase of our questioning with this. And this is, I think, is probably the least technical, but also I think the most interesting from a personality standpoint, right? We have to take into mind what the cultural impact of this is. And Michael, when you and I chatted prior to the panel discussion, you brought up the fact that your company is not solely based in the US, and there are cultural differences there, and that you need to support those. Can you talk us through the cultural differences that you're dealing with and how you've dealt with them in the short term?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. We're a Japanese-owned company, so headquarters being in Japan. You know, when we wanted to make difficult decisions, when we needed to make key decisions in the company, we went to Tokyo. We sat down in front of each other. We ate, we ate dinner together. We worked it out. We asked our questions. We would, end the meeting, shake hands, bow, and then we would go. That's what we did. That was an agreement, and we'd go forward. That doesn't actually work as well culturally across a video conference. You don't spend that much time on it. It's easy to be distracted, and at the end of it, there is no handshake. So a lot of the things that we put into place from our culture of being personal and using reading body language differently, and some of those universal communication tactics don't work as well across a video camera. So trying to figure out exactly how do we do this, without just turning into an email-based company, because there's nothing worse than trying to make tough decisions and having difficult conversations over email. But how do we have those team building events? How do you break bread and learn about people so you can create that team if you never get a chance to see each other? If your entire culture has been based about being in the office, it's been based about having water cooler conversations and talks when you're walking around the building. And that's not just in North America. That's been something we've had, that's been an adjustment across the entire globe. And we're all getting a little bit better because of the pervasiveness of things like GoToMeeting, WebEx, Zoom, Microsoft Teams. But it's still not a very natural thing when people are crying out for a more cohesive personal touch culture. So from inside the office, some of the things that we've tried to do to make this a little bit better is when we're having team meetings, we put a rule in that was if one person in your team is not in the conference room, no one's allowed to be in the conference room. So that way everyone has to be remote at that point. So if we have 10, if we have teams of 12 people, if one is in Florida and the other 11 are in our headquarters, our North American headquarters, everyone's on Zoom. And the reason for that is then there is no one person that the person in Florida leaves the call because we're done, and then everyone ends up sticking around the room and having conversations, which that fragments your team and has the possibility of causing trust and conflict, trust issues and conflict issues. So making sure that everyone is a remote, that pretty much that sets a different bar and consistency across your team. Making sure that we're taking much better notes in meetings, following up with several conversations either via email or via additional video calls, and making sure that everyone is in alignment and commitment before we continue on, because we don't have the nonverbal and informal personal ways of understanding that and really committing to it. So we have to be more formal with the way we commit to things to make sure that there is no misunderstanding about what we're trying to do. We've found several places where we've taken for granted the fact that we're not sitting in front of each other. We do something, and even though we feel like we agreed upon it, it wasn't agreed upon. So we're changing our tactics there. We're also breaching into a whole nother way of doing sales. We've been used to taking our products, kits of applications out to a factory where our products are used, and sitting down with the engineers of whatever that company is, or sitting down with engineers at machine builders facilities and designing product, designing their application, figuring out how to make it work. Well, our people could start traveling there because they were never in the office, but as the factories are opening up, the engineers aren't in the office. They've gone work from home because they don't need to. So, and we're not going to show up in everyone's living room. So we're trying to find new ways to have these conversations. We can obviously have, video calls with our customers. We can do some collaboration there, but it takes the hands-on approach to our product sales out of the picture. So looking for new ways to have some kind of a virtual, whether it's, applications in which we can manipulate, the kits, whether it's, augmented reality or something like that, that allows us to actually have that touch and feel conversation about how our parts and our products would work inside of any application in those facilities. It is going to be huge as we continue to grow. With many manufacturers, we're seeing such a huge ramp in our growth because of our customers' growth. retooling is becoming huge. So we're not just having a conversation of selling the same old part over and over and over again. People are wanting to do new things now. So trying to figure out how we best sell and have that conversation has been a challenge that we've been trying to get through. And right now, because everyone's in this weird place, we're able to do it awkwardly over just a video call. But we know as time goes on, we'll have to innovate and find a way to have that hands-on touch without being present in the room.
I unmuted and muted myself again. I'm sorry about that. Thank you very much for that, Michael. That'll take us over to Murli. And Murli, I wanted to talk with you about this and have you maybe explain how either we've helped a client or maybe some of our own internal issues with collaboration or something around the cultural aspect of what's happening with work from home. If you can expound on that, that'd be great.
Absolutely, Mike. We have come across not in many cases, but in some of the the cases, the customer always prefers to have an in-person kind of a meeting, for a better accountability or the ownership. Unlike most customers are very comfortable having remote video conference or the Teams based meeting. If you look at from a Yash, we have about 40-41 offices globally spread across in the 20 different the countries. And the Yash, the mantra or the model is to have a presence in any of most of the customers in the locations. Wherever the customer follows, we follow them for most of the the strategic the customers. So what it means is we have a branch opened up in the customers the specific locations or the headquartered the location. So that way we are able to place a local accountable person in that particular the region, which helps overcome the cultural aspect or the language. They can meet the customer, give them the accountability or the ownership, and put the commitment. So that's the model we had been following. That comes right from the the top the senior executives from the Yash. If you go back, the Yash started in East Mall, it's because of the John Deere back in 1996. Okay. And we have an office for every other customers where all the strategic the customer, we have an office presence. We make sure the delivery managers or account managers and operate from them to overcome all this the cultural the aspect. Mike. So let me pause there, Mike.
Oh, thank you very much for that, Murli. And being part of the same organization, I'm appreciative of a lot of the things that you guys have done to support the sales team. It's actually helped quite a bit, and it's allowed us to still be prosperous during a down time. And that'll take me over to Tate, because I am the sales rep for Polaris with Yash, and I spend a lot of time out there normally. I haven't been into your offices for over a year now, but when I was there, the thing that always struck me was that the collaboration is really intense. There's more people sitting in the cafeteria at other times than usually than during the lunch hour. So could you talk to us a little bit about how you fostered some of the collaboration through your efforts, Tate?
Sure. Yeah, certainly it was awkward when everyone suddenly went remote, because we're used to just shouting over the desktops, getting together in the cafeteria, whatever. And we had to have some focus on making some changes to how we do our work, how we assign our work and keep track of it, because if you're not right there next to the person watching them do their work, we had to leverage ServiceNow. We started using Kanban boards to, here's the tasks, here's what you have to do, here's how you keep track of it. And so in a lot of ways, you had to lead differently by using some of these tools rather than just standing over them and watching and listening. And one positive that came out of it was, with everybody remote, we had better engagement with our international staff team members, in India and China and Canada and Mexico, Europe, because everybody's remote now. So everything you're doing on a Teams call, for example, you do in a way to get the message across in a virtual environment, whereas before you'd just stop by someone's cube later and give them the details. Well, that's just not an option now. So there's been, I think, improved engagement from our international team members, which is nice. And I think Mike kind of touched on it. How do you keep that going forward, so people don't have the after meeting meetings? That's going to be a challenge for us. How do we maintain that going forward? The only other thought I had on there were from my lens, from a leadership lens, a lot of what we have to do is influencing. And a lot of influencing comes from building relationships with people in the business. And I have been feeling out of touch with that for the last year, as people change roles at our manufacturing facilities, or there's new manufacturing facilities being built, and I have no mental image of what's going on there. What's the complexity? How close is that to the other building? Why are we doing the kind of WAN connectivity we're doing? Is it because of geographical challenges? And so I am feeling a little bit out of touch, and I haven't yet been able to have collaboration tools solve all those for me. And I imagine that's a challenge many of us are going through. I'll stop there.
And you brought up a really interesting point, the fact that we've had to rely on each other internationally, right? As the pandemic has swept through different areas, like unfortunately it's sweeping through India and that part of the globe right now. So thoughts and prayers out to those people from all of us here at Yash. I just think it's phenomenal how we as a species have gone ahead and supported each other across boundaries and everything else to have singular goals. And I'm going to throw a curveball in here because I did skip the introductions. I want to pose another question to the panel, and I'm going to start with you, Merle. Is this the future of work as we see it? Are we going to stay in a hybrid work environment, or will this live past the post-pandemic period of our lives? I think you're on mute, sir.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
so.
can you hear me? Yeah.
We can
Yes.
hear you. Thank you.
Yeah, so Mike, my take on this is hybrid work environment is going to be the future, Mike, for several other reasons. So now, many organizations are, getting, benefited from the, the real estate. That's one. Two, the technology can, provide, the support. Many companies have figured out during the pandemic, how the technology can help, seamlessly connect with people. Two, the three, the most important is, it brings down the carbon footprint. Okay, when the less employees are traveling, on the road, it brings down the carbon footprint, which enables the climate control, and it falls in line with the, the Paris Accord, or the initiatives. Okay, so my view on this is that's going to be the that also gives the lot more the flexibility for the employees. They can work from couple days, they can work from home, couple days they can go and meet their colleagues, chit chat, meet them, go out for a lunch. They have all the flexibilities and the advantage. So my take on this is hybrid workforce is going to be the the future.
What about the rest of the panel? Do you guys agree? Michael, do you have an opinion on this?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with Merle. I think, although I see that this trend started well before the pandemic. It's just the pandemic kind of pushed it into hyperdrive, because of the needs. I think with the change in workforce and with the ability of technology, if your leadership and management styles allow people not to be in the office, and there's not a desperate need for them to be physically in a location. I think you've been seeing for a while the drive to get people out of the office. With the millennial workforce, with the new Gen Z workforce, they are looking for things that are not in the office, that make them, that a lot of times make them the best employees. So giving them that freedom is going to be fantastic. As people are getting older in their career, as they're getting further along, giving them the freedoms to do things and get them out of the office, to really help reintegrate life and work together, is huge. Because I think we all, I have thrown out the idea of a balance for years ago. It's just really now about making sure that my work life and home life are integrated with each other correctly. Getting out of the office helps a great deal with that. I do feel that there's probably some industries that have gone, that will have to snap back a little bit. They went remote without having that leadership and management structure that really allows their employees to work without task management. So until they can either do that, or they will end up pulling everyone back in once they realize that they don't have a good grasp on what the work is that is getting done. But any outcome-based company that doesn't require people to be in the office will probably either stay hybrid or go full remote, is my opinion, long term.
Thanks. And I just got a little beep in my ear that we're running up onto the top of the hour. So
I guess I'd add it's very, very role dependent. For example, my IT support staff at the manufacturing sites can't do much of that remote. You got to be hands-on there. And at Polaris, we conducted a crowdsourcing event with our employees to understand what's working, what's not. And we got extremely favorable feedback for remote work flexibility, as well as the ability to be productive. And that the only negative feedback was that collaboration and interaction. And so in my mind, that kind of says hybrid is the best of both. And combine that with the ability to attract talent by offering it. And yeah, I think it's here to stay.
yeah, and whether we want it to be or not, I think it is here to stay as well. And with that, I think we're going to close up the question period of the thing. If any of the people watching would like to go ahead and submit questions, we can always forward them on to Michael, Tate, Murley. All you'd need to do is send them to info@yash.com. That's info@yash.com, and we'll go ahead and get those answered to you in quickly as we can. But I would like to we've got less than a minute here, so I want to thank Michael Loggins, Tate Gutkin, Murley Jothlingham for your time, your expertise, and your knowledge. It's been warmly received by us. We want to thank you again for everything that you've done. And everybody, I'll let you go, and you can all have a wonderful day now.